Welcome to Silent Screams, where the most chilling tales come alive. Tonight, we delve into 5 true biking horror stories that will make you think twice before your next ride. It all begins on a damp and foggy evening, the type of night where even the moon seems to hide behind a curtain of clouds, and every sound feels amplified by the stillness of the air. Lucas had always loved biking through the dense forest trails near his town, claiming it was his escape from the noise of the world. But that night, as he fastened his helmet and clicked on his headlamp, he felt an inexplicable unease. It was the kind of feeling that clings to you, like an invisible hand resting on your shoulder, whispering a warning you can't quite understand. The trail started like any other ride, smooth, silent except for the rhythmic crunching of his tires against gravel. But as Lucas pedaled deeper into the woods, the trees seemed to close in around him. His headlamp barely cut through the mist that seemed to rise from the ground like an eerie living thing. The familiar landmarks he'd passed countless times before, the old twisted oak, the small wooden bridge, felt different now, as though they were watching him. Suddenly, the sound of his tires grinding to a halt filled the air. He had come across a fallen tree blocking the path. Lucas swore under his breath, dismounting his bike. As he bent to lift it over the obstacle, a faint sound reached his ears, a soft, melodic humming. It was faint, almost carried away by the wind, but it was there. He froze, his heart thudding in his chest. He scanned the darkness with his headlamp, but nothing moved except for the mist curling at his feet. "Hello," Lucas called out, his voice wavering. No reply came, only the humming, growing louder now, more distinct. It wasn't melodic anymore. It was mournful, broken by an occasional hitch that sounded like crying. His grip tightened on the handlebars as a shadow moved in the corner of his eye. He whipped, his head around, the headlamp's beam darting wildly through the trees, but there was nothing there. Just empty woods and the oppressive fog swallowing the trail. The humming stopped. Lucas stood frozen, his breaths shallow and rapid. The silence was suffocating. He felt a chill crawl down his spine, as though icy fingers were tracing the length of his back. Before he could think of what to do, a voice, low and guttural, whispered directly into his ear, "You shouldn't be here." Lucas spun around, swinging the bike as though it could somehow defend him. But no one was there. The forest was empty. He didn't wait for another sign. Throwing his bike over the fallen tree, he jumped back on and pedaled as fast as he could. The wind stung his face as he tore through the trail, heart pounding like a drum in his ears. But no matter how fast he pedaled, it felt like he wasn't alone. He couldn't explain it. There were no footsteps, no rustling leaves, but he knew something was chasing him. He risked a glance over his shoulder, and that's when he saw it. A figure, pale and translucent, standing on the path behind him. Its face was shrouded in shadow, but the eyes, they glowed with an unnatural light, piercing through the darkness like twin beacons. The figure didn't run or move. It just stood there, staring, its mouth opening wide in a soundless scream. Lucas didn't dare look back again. He pushed himself harder, his legs burning with the effort. The trail twisted and turned, and he nearly lost control several times, but he couldn't stop. The sense of being watched never left him, and every so often, he would hear faint whispers in the wind, words he couldn't understand but filled him with unspeakable dread. Finally, the trail opened up to a clearing, and the faint lights of the town came into view. Relief washed over him as he skidded to a stop at the edge of the forest, panting and drenched in sweat. He glanced back one last time, half expecting the figure to be standing there, but the trail was empty. The forest was silent once more, as though nothing had happened. Lucas didn't tell anyone about what he saw that night. Who would believe him? But he never rode that trail again. The next story takes us to a group of friends who, like Lucas, learn the hard way that some places are better left undisturbed. Their tale begins on an abandoned road, winding through an overgrown countryside. But what started as a fun nighttime ride soon turned into a nightmare they would never forget.